Hello, Miss Steele here. So this week we are talking about value. So we're going to be using value for our next project. We're going to be making some value tunnels. They're almost like optical illusions. What you want is a square piece of paper. I'll show you how to cut a square piece of paper in a second. You want a pencil and an eraser. If you're going to be cutting your paper, and possibly for later, you want scissors, glue, which I forgot to grab. I'll go grab that in a second. A ruler, and then you want some colored pencils, and I have a sharpener because we're going to be using these colored pencils a lot. At the very end, you're going to have the option to add some collage pieces on top, being cut out from extra magazines or newspapers you might have. So I have some extra magazines that I might use to add a collage on top at the end, which is what we need the glue for. So the first thing we want to do is make for sure your paper is square. What I have for a demo is an extra piece of brown paper because I had already cut my white paper. And to make a piece of paper square, if it's longer one way, what you're going to do is you're going to take the corner and you're going to fold it over and line it up to the top of the paper with that corner, squish it down, cut off the excess, and then you'll have a perfectly square piece of paper, which we need for this. So there is another square piece of paper. You want to do this on white paper though, so the colors show up nicer. And I know I've accidentally folded it this way, but it did not need to be folded that way. Instead, you want to fold it corner to corner, and this is going to help create our sections that we need to color in. So corner to corner, and then I'm actually going to fold it one more time so we can have some triangular sections. Like that. Now I'm going to unfold this. And what I really need are these triangle lines, and now that I've folded it, I'm going to grab my ruler and my pencil, and I'm going to lightly outline these lines, because I want them to help guide me in a second. And then the next way, trying to get edge to edge, like that. Now what we want to do is we want to break this paper up into a few different sections. We actually want to break it up into 6 different sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I want to add 5 lines. My paper is exactly 12 inches. Your paper might be bigger or smaller, but basically what you want to do is you want to create 5 lines that are pretty equal in distance apart from each other. If they're not perfectly equal, that's okay, but you want to add 5 lines. I use my ruler just to measure, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add straight lines going across like this. So breaking up our paper is kind of what takes a little bit of time. And like I said, if your paper isn't exactly 6 inches or 12 inches, you just want to try to add 5 lines that goes straight across, which is why we need the ruler. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections, and what we're going to try to do is create 6 different values. And what you want to do is using these lines, I'm going to go around and fill in these other areas. So what I like to do is try to get it lined up, find where the end of that line is, and then I can draw it straight across like that. And again, if they're not perfectly spaced apart, that's okay. It's going to be less noticeable in the finished product. And then I line it up and I go down. And then I'll turn my paper again for the next one like that. And I'll line them up and I'll try to draw straight across the best I can. So I'm going to get these other last 2 sections broken up, and then we'll move on to our next step. Okay, so now I have my paper broken up with those lines. You can see some areas where they were a little crooked, so I kind of fixed them. And I know I said we needed colored pencils, but we really only need 4 colors. You want white, black, gray, and if you don't have gray, you can always layer these 2 together to make gray, and then you want whatever your base color is going to be, and I chose turquoise. And to create 6 different values, what we're going to do is we're going to use all 3 of these together. For our 2 lightest values, we're going to hold far back on our colored pencil, so we're applying less pressure, and we're going to color in for our lightest, and then again for another light one. And what we can do is we can go back with the white and layer it on that blue, and now we have a lightest and then a next lightest. The next one we can do is hold in the middle of our colored pencil and press a bit harder. And then we have lightest, the next one, and these two are the same, but I'm going to make this one a bit darker by layering on some gray. Like that. And so now we're going to get to our last two values, and I'm going to press super hard for this next one, and then super hard for this last one, and for this last one I am going to layer it lightly with some black. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different values. What we're going to do is we're going to fill these in using those different values, and we're going to do this in a way that makes it kind of more visually interesting than just coloring in the squares like normal. What we're going to do is we're going to go from lightest to darkest on these two sections, and then from darkest to lightest. So to show you how that would go, for my first two sections in here, I would try to hold as far back on my colored pencil as I can. And if I get outside of these lines a little bit, that's okay, because I know that I'm going to go back and make these super dark. And I'm going to color very lightly. And then I'm going to do the same on this other side. So I'm coloring in very lightly. And now I'm going to go back with the white, and I'm going to hit just these center two pieces. And so these two in the middle will be my lightest value, because I'm layering on that white colored pencil on top of there. And it's almost like adding a tint to it because we're putting white on top. If you remember a tint, tone, and shade. You could also do this using paint if you have them. I just wanted to show you how to do it using colored pencils because that's something that's a little more accessible. Alright, I'm going to get these two sharpened, and then we're going to start light on the outside and show you kind of how that works together. Okay, so now I have the tops of these two filled in. And on our two empty ones, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to start at the back. So I am going to color in these back two rows as lightly as I can, and then I'm going to layer white on the one that's on the edge. And so it's the same thing, but it's going from lightest to darkest, and this one's going to go from lightest to darkest the other way. So if you see, these are not in the triangles that I've already started to color in. These are in the ones that were left empty. So I'm going to get this colored in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it with that white just for this last one, just so I can make it look a little bit lighter. So I'm going to do that on this side and on this other side, and then we're going to move on to our medium values and then our darkest values. So we have our first two filled in. It's a little bit harder to tell on the camera the difference between the values, but because I layered white on this one, it's a little bit lighter. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our medium values, and we're going to put them going this way for this side and the other way for this side. So what I'm going to do with these two right here in the middle is I'm going to press like I normally would with my colored pencil. So I'm holding it about in the middle. And I'm not pressing super soft, and I'm not pressing super hard. I'm just kind of pressing like how I normally would. If you're someone that normally colors in really dark, you might want to press a little bit lighter. But in general, I'm just coloring in these two with my normal amount of pressure. So I'm going to do that for these two, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill it in the same way on the other side, which is actually going to end up making a square like this. So I'm going down this way and up this way, so it's actually going to be these two middle squares all the way around that's going to be filled with a normal amount of pressure. So I'm going to be coloring in these two squares on this side. You can see me already coloring in these two, and then I'm working from the bottom up this way and then from the top down the other way. So I'm going to go through and get this full square colored in, and then we're going to layer some of the stripes with the, or strips if you will, with the gray to make it a little bit of a darker value. Alright, so now I have my medium values filled in, and what I'm going to do is for my one going from lightest to darkest, so the one where I have the lightest in the front, I'm going to leave this one like normal, and then I'm going to color in the next one gray, because this is going the opposite as the other way. So I'm going to color in this stripe, get gray. So the one where we started in the center with the lightest in that area, so now it goes light, next light, and then it's going to get darker. For the side that starts the lightest and goes in to be the darkest, I'm going to make this bottom one gray. So it's almost like I'm flip-flopping for each one. So if it's going from lightest to darkest from the outside, I'm going to color in the last one gray. And then this way it's going from the tip down. So I'm going to color in this one gray. And then what we're going to do once I'm done with this is we are going to put in our last two values and we will be finished. So I'm going to get this one colored in gray. And then I'm going to get this one colored in gray. I'm going to get these finished up and then we'll move on to our last value to add. What we're going to do is in these darkest areas, or this broke, in these areas that it still is not colored in, for these two inside sections, I'm going to color them in, pressing as hard as I can with my colored pencil. Right here, here, and then the same on the outside. So anything that's left that has not been colored in, you're going to add the darkest value. We're going to layer with black after this, but first we need to get these areas colored in with our darkest value. So you're using a colored pencil, holding it closer to the colored lead, so you can press harder to get a darker value because you're applying more pressure. It's easier to get a darker color because you're pressing harder. Alright, so here is the last step if you would like it to be. There's an additional step afterwards I'm going to tell you about. But now I'm going to use my black colored pencil, and on my darkest side I'm going to layer the very end of the triangle with black colored pencil. I'm going to try to press lightly. I don't want it to be completely black. I want to still be able to see that blue through there. And that's going to be my darkest value. And now I'm going to do it on the other side. Trying to press lightly, but get the triangle shape filled in. And that is going to be my darkest value. And now I'm going to go on the ends of my triangle. And on the end right here, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to layer it lightly with black, and that's going to give me my darkest values for the end. So I'm going to do that on this end, and then I'm going to do that on this end, and then I'll tell you about an additional last step if you want to add some pizzazz to this. Making a drawing or a coloring this big, sometimes there ends up being little spots that you may not be as happy with. So what you can do is you can flip through some magazines and you can add a collage on here if you want, about 3 pieces or less. You also want them to be smaller than your palm because we don't want to cover up all this gorgeous work. And to help push that illusion that we made, you want to put smaller things towards the center and larger things towards the outside. I'm going to flip through some magazines and see if I can find a clipping or two to glue onto here to finish this up. Alright, so I found some little flower clippings, so I decided to add those on here, and I am all finished with my value tunnel. I can't wait to see how yours come out, and I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Bye!